Welcome to Justice Insight Cam. We showcase raw bodycam recordings of actual law enforcement stops. Beyond the dramatic footage, we carefully interpret the law, the factual reality, and the profound lessons hidden in plain sight. Let's focus on the pursuit of justice.
Sir, you have 5 seconds. Grab your things and walk out, or you're leaving in cuffs.
Officer, I'm a paying customer. You're out of line.
Hands away from the bag. Last warning.
You're recording this, right? Then understand this arrest will end your career.
5 seconds. Grab your things and walk out that door, or you're leaving in cuffs. I'm not asking a third time.
The voice sliced through the bakery's warm, yeasty air like a serrated blade. It came out aggressive, quivering with an adrenaline that had no business showing up on a sunny Tuesday morning. Marcus Thorne didn't look up immediately. He carefully tapped the save icon on his tablet, closed the leather cover, and then slowly raised his eyes to meet the gaze of the young man standing over his table. Officer Marcus said, his voice a deep, calm baritone that had commanded boardrooms for 30 years. "I'm drinking a coffee and reviewing my quarterly expenses. I haven't raised my voice, I haven't bothered anyone, and I am certainly not leaving." "You're loitering," the officer snapped. His name tag read Bennett. He looked no older than 24. His uniform pressed so sharply it looked like it could cut skin, his hand resting ominously near his holster. "And the manager wants the tables clear for paying customers. Now get up." "I am a paying customer," Marcus replied, gesturing to the ceramic mug and the half-eaten scone on the plate. "And I believe the manager is currently in the back office handling the vendor delivery I scheduled for today." "Don't get smart with me, pal. I saw you through the window. You've been sitting here for 45 minutes just watching the register. We've had reports of vagrants harassing staff in this district. You fit the description." Marcus held still for a beat. He looked down at his Italian loafers, then at his tailored charcoal suit trousers, and finally at the silk tie he had knotted perfectly that morning. "Vagrant," Marcus repeated, tasting the word. "Officer Bennett, you're making a profound error in judgment right now. I'm going to ask you to take a breath step back and allow me to show you the identification inside my briefcase. Hand away from the bag." Bennett barked, his hand dropping to unsnap the retention strap of his service weapon. The few other customers in the shop, a young couple in the corner, and an elderly man reading a newspaper, froze. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. "You reach for that bag and things are going to get bad for you real quick." "I am trying to help you avoid a lawsuit, officer," Marcus said, keeping his hands flat on the table, palms open. "But you seem determined to ruin your own career before lunch. I am not a threat. I am not a vagrant, and I am not going anywhere until I finish my work. But understand that the security cameras in the corners of the ceiling were capturing every frame of this interaction. Every pixel of Officer Kyle Bennett's aggression, and every second of Marcus Thorne's composure. And Officer Bennett had absolutely no idea that the man he was threatening to drag out of the Savory Grains Bakery was not just a customer, he was the owner. In fact, he owned the entire regional franchise for the tri-state area. Before we see just how badly this rookie officer destroys his future, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your state, your country. And if you believe that business owners shouldn't be harassed in their own establishments, hit that subscribe button. This story is about to expose a level of incompetence that is hard to believe, but sadly, all too real. Marcus Thorne was not a man who sought out conflict. At 55 years old, he had spent the better part of 3 decades navigating the high-stakes world of aerospace engineering. He had retired with a golden parachute and a desire to build something tangible in the community where he grew up. He didn't buy the bakery franchise because he needed the money. He bought it because he wanted to create jobs. He wanted a place where the coffee was good, the staff was paid a living wage, and the neighborhood had a gathering spot that felt safe. He had arrived at the flagship location of Savory Grains at 6:30 a.m. as he did every Tuesday. It was his routine. He liked to sit at the back table near the window, the one that caught the morning sun, and review the numbers before the morning rush truly peaked. He checked inventory, approved payroll, and occasionally tasted the new pastry recipes. To the casual observer, he was just a black man in a suit sitting with a tablet. To anyone who actually knew the neighborhood, he was Mr. Thorne, the man who sponsored the local Little League team and paid for the new roof on the community center. Officer Kyle Bennett, however, did not know the neighborhood. He had been on the force for exactly 6 months. He was a transfer from a rural county 2 hours north, and he had brought with him a specific philosophy of policing that viewed every interaction as a battle for dominance. Bennett was patrolling the commercial district, looking for stats. His training officer had told him to be proactive to clear out the riffraff before they drove away the tax-paying citizens. When Bennett drove his patrol car slowly past the bakery, he didn't see a business owner working. He saw a black man sitting alone in a shop that served $5 lattes, looking at the staff and the register. In Bennett's mind, fueled by implicit bias and a lack of experience, this didn't compute as ownership. It computed as casing the joint. He assumed Marcus was waiting for the right moment to rob the place, or was a well-dressed con artist, loitering until he could pull a scam. Bennett parked his cruiser in the red zone, blocking the handicap ramp, an infraction all by itself, and adjusted his belt. He watched Marcus through the glass for a full minute. He saw Marcus look up at the counter, then type on his tablet. To Bennett, this looked like surveillance. He decided he was going to clean up the street. He walked in with his chest puffed out, ready for a fight, completely ignoring the fact that Marcus's suit jacket draped over the chair next to him was worth more than Bennett's entire monthly paycheck. "You need to understand the mindset here," Marcus would later tell his attorney. "He didn't see me. He saw a caricature he had built in his head, and once he decided I was that caricature, nothing I said was going to change his mind. He had already written the ticket in his head before he even opened the door." Inside the bakery, cinnamon and roasted coffee usually felt comforting, but now the air carried the sharp, metallic edge of confrontation. Marcus remained seated, his posture perfect. He had learned a long time ago that when dealing with authority figures who were looking for an excuse, any sudden movement, any display of anger could be fatal. He had to be smarter. He had to be cooler, and he had to be ready to let the officer dig his own grave. "I'm going to count to 3, Bennett said, his voice rising in volume. "If you are not standing up and moving towards that exit, you're going to be placed under arrest for criminal trespass and failure to obey a lawful order." "On whose authority am I trespassing?" Marcus asked, his voice steady, though his heart was beginning to hammer against his ribs. He knew the law. He knew that for a trespassing charge to stick, the owner or an authorized agent of the property had to request the person's removal. "Has the manager asked me to leave? Has the owner asked me to leave?" "I am the authority," Bennett spat back, "and I'm telling you that you're disrupting business." At that moment, the door to the back office swung open. Sarah, the store manager, stepped out, holding a clipboard. She was a woman in her 40s who had worked for Marcus for 2 years. She froze when she saw the unformed officer towering over her boss. Her eyes went wide, shifting from the officer's aggressive stance to Marcus's calm demeanor. "Officer," Sarah called out, stepping around the counter, "is there a problem here?" Bennett spun around, holding up a hand to stop her approach. "Stay back, Mom. I'm handling a disturbance. I need you to stay behind the counter for your own safety." "Disturbance?" Sarah looked confused. "That's Mr. Thorne. He's not disturbing anyone." I said stay back," Bennett yelled, his voice cracking slightly. "Do not interfere with a police investigation, or I will cite you for obstruction. Is that clear?" "Officer, please." Marcus said, his tone sharpening. "That is my employee." "You will not speak to her that way. Sarah, do not engage with him. Go back to the office and call my attorney. His number is on the emergency contact list. He's not calling anyone." Bennett snapped. He turned back to Marcus, his face flushing red. The fact that this vagrant was giving orders to the staff and talking about attorneys was infuriating him. It didn't fit the script. It challenged his control. "Stand up now. Turn around." "I am trying to tell you," Marcus said, speaking slowly and clearly for the benefit of the witnesses and the recording devices he knew were rolling. "My identification, my business license, and the deed to this property are in my briefcase. If you simply let me open it, you will see that I am the owner of this franchise. You are attempting to kick a man out of his own business. I don't care what you say you have," Bennett said, reaching for his handcuffs. "You had your chance to leave. Now you're going to jail. You can show your papers to the judge." Bennett wasn't looking for the truth. He wanted compliance. He had made a command in front of an audience, and in his immature view of policing, backing down now would make him look weak. He was operating on pure ego, driven by the terrifying belief that his badge gave him the right to create his own reality. He grabbed Marcus's left arm and yanked him upward. Marcus didn't fight. He didn't pull away. He stood up with the grace of a man who knew exactly who he was, allowing the officer to twist his arm behind his back. The physical contact was jarring and indignity Marcus hadn't suffered since he was a teenager in the 1970s, but he maintained his composure. "You're making a mistake that will cost this city dearly," Marcus said quietly. Yeah, tell it to the booking sergeant," Bennett grunted, snapping the first cuff onto Marcus's wrist. The sound of the ratcheting handcuffs was loud in the quiet shop. Click, click, click. It was a sound that signified the total stripping of a citizen's liberty. Bennett roughly pulled Marcus's other arm back, securing the second cuff. The metal bit into Marcus's wrists, tight and cold. "You're hurting him!" Sarah yelled from behind the counter, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. She held her phone up, recording the scene, her hand shaking. "That is the owner. You are arresting the owner. Ma'am, one more word and you're joining him." Bennett threatened over his shoulder, sweating now. He felt the eyes of the room on him. The young couple in the corner had their phones out too. The elderly man had put down his paper and was writing something in a notebook. "I am compliant, officer," Marcus stated, his voice projecting. "I am offering no resistance. I have informed you of my identity and my status as the property owner. You are arresting me without probable cause. You're under arrest for trespassing, disorderly conduct, and resisting an officer." Bennett reciting the catch-all charges bad cops used when they had no actual crime to report. He pushed Marcus toward the door. "Let's go." Marcus walked with his head high. He didn't look at the floor. He looked directly at Sarah. "Call David," he said, referring to his lawyer. "Then call Councilman Reynolds. Tell him what happened." Bennett paused for a split second at the mention of the city councilman, but he was too far gone to stop. He shoved Marcus through the glass door and out onto the sidewalk. The bright morning sun hit them, a stark contrast to the dark turn the day had taken. Passers-by stopped and stared. To them, it looked like a criminal was being apprehended, a black man in handcuffs being led away by the police. It was an image that reinforced every negative stereotype, every bias, every fear. But Marcus knew that the visual narrative would change. He knew that the video Sarah was taking and the videos from the customers would tell a different story. "Watch your head," Bennett said, unnecessarily rough, as he pushed Marcus into the back of the patrol vehicle. The hard plastic seat was uncomfortable, designed to be dehumanizing. The car smelled of stale sweat and industrial cleaner. As Bennett slammed the door, shutting Marcus inside the cage, Marcus closed his eyes for a brief moment. He felt a deep, burning anger, not just for himself, but for every person who had sat in this seat who didn't own a franchise, for every person who didn't have a high-powered attorney on speed dial, for every young man who would have panicked, pulled away, and ended up beaten or worse. He opened his eyes and looked through the wire mesh as Bennett got into the driver's seat. The rookie looked pumped up, breathing hard, checking his reflection in the rear-view mirror. He looked like he had just won a prize. He had no idea he had just signed his own termination letter. The ride to the precinct lasted 15 minutes. Bennett didn't speak, and neither did Marcus. The silence in the car was thick, filled with the static of the police radio and the humming of the tires on the asphalt. Bennett was likely running through his report in his head, figuring out how to articulate the threat Marcus had posed. He would use words like furtive movements, belligerent stance, and refusal to identify. He was crafting a fiction to cover his incompetence. Marcus, on the other hand, was memorizing details. The time of day, the speed of the vehicle, the fact that Bennett was texting on his personal cell phone while driving the squad car. He was building his case file mentally, organizing the facts with the precision of the engineer he used to be. When they pulled into the sally port of the 12th precinct, the heavy metal doors rolled down behind them, sealing them in the concrete intake area. Bennett hauled Marcus out of the car. "Let's go." "Booking is this way," Bennett said, gripping Marcus's arm again. They walked through the double doors into the processing area. It was a busy morning. Phones were ringing and other officers were typing reports. At the main desk sat Desk Sergeant Thomas Miller. Miller was a fixture of the department, a man with 25 years of service, gray hair, and a no-nonsense attitude. He knew the community, he knew the players. Bennett marched Marcus up to the high desk. "Possession of an attitude, trespassing, and resisting," Bennett announced proudly, placing Marcus's wallet and keys on the counter. "Found him loitering in that bakery on 4th. Wouldn't leave when told." Sergeant Miller looked up from his computer screen. He looked at Officer Bennett. Then he looked at the man in handcuffs. Miller's eyes narrowed. He squinted as if trying to process an image that didn't make sense. Then his face went pale. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Officer Bennett," Miller said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Yes, Sarge," Bennett asked, oblivious. "Why is Mr. Thorne in handcuffs?" Bennett blinked. "Mr. Who? This guy refused to ID, said he owned the place or something. Just another guy talking trash." Miller walked around the desk. He didn't look at Bennett. He looked at Marcus. "Mr. Thorne, I don't even know what to say. Are you injured?" "The cuffs are a bit tight, Sergeant Miller," Marcus said, calmly. "And I believe your officer here has made a significant error regarding the definition of trespassing." Miller turned to Bennett. The look on the sergeant's face was not one of anger. It was one of pity and disbelief. "Bennett, do you know who this is? This is Marcus Thorne. He is the chairman of the Police Athletic League. He donates the turkeys for the precinct food drive every Thanksgiving. And yes, he owns the Savory Grains franchise. All 12 locations." The blood drained from Kyle Bennett's face so fast, it looked like he might faint. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Marcus, really looked at him for the first time, and saw the quality of the suit, the dignity and the posture, the cold intelligence in the eyes. "Like he didn't show me ID," Bennett stammered. "I offered to show you my business license," Marcus corrected him. "You threatened to shoot me if I reached for my bag." The squad room had gone silent. Other officers had stopped what they were doing and were watching. Sergeant Miller pulled a key from his belt. "Uncuff him now." "But once the cuffs are on, I have to process." Bennett started falling back on procedure to save himself. "I said, take them off." Miller roared, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Bennett's hands shook as he unlocked the handcuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists where red, angry marks had formed. He adjusted his cuffs and straightened his jacket. "Mr. Thorne, please come with me to the captain's office," Miller said, trying to salvage the situation. "We can sort this out. I'm sure Officer Bennett here simply." "I'm not going to the captain's office to chat, Sergeant," Marcus interrupted. "And we aren't going to sort this out off the record." At that moment, Lieutenant Henderson, the watch commander, burst into the room. He had clearly just gotten a phone call. He looked frantic. "Mr. Thorne, I just got a call from Councilman Reynolds." "I am so sorry. There has been a terrible misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice ice cold. "It was a false arrest. It was profiling, and it was a violation of my 4th and 14th Amendment rights. Look, we can drop all charges immediately," the lieutenant said, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "We'll expugn the record of the arrest. You can walk out of here right now, and we will deal with Officer Bennett internally. We can make this go away." This was the pivot point, the moment where the system tries to protect itself. They wanted Marcus to accept the apology, take the unarrest, and leave so they could sweep it under the rug. "No," Marcus said. The room went deadly silent again. "Excuse me?" the lieutenant asked. I said, "No. You aren't going to drop the charges and pretend this didn't happen. I want you to finish the booking process." "Mr. Thorne, you don't want an arrest record," Miller said. "I want the paper trail," Marcus replied. "I want Officer Bennett to sign his name to the statement of probable cause. I want him to write down under penalty of perjury exactly what crime he believes I committed. I want a booking number because without that official record, this is just a misunderstanding. With that record, it is evidence in a federal lawsuit." Bennett looked like he wanted to vomit. He realized now that he hadn't just caught a big fish. He had caught a shark, and he was currently bleeding in the water. "Process me," Marcus commanded. "Take my fingerprints. Take my mugshot. Do it by the book, because I am certainly going to do everything by the book when I sue this department and this city." They had no choice. For the next hour, the officers of the 12th Precinct had to humiliate themselves by booking one of their biggest supporters. They fingerprinted him. They took his photo, and every step of the way, Marcus Thorne watched them with the eyes of a man who was already writing the closing arguments for his trial. Marcus was released on his own recognizance 2 hours later. He walked out of the precinct to find a small army of reporters waiting. Sarah had not only called the lawyer, she had sent the video to the local news station. By that evening, the story had gone national. The cell phone footage from inside the bakery was playing on loop on cable news. It showed the stark contrast. A calm, well-dressed black man trying to eat his breakfast, and a young aggressive officer escalating a non-situation into a crisis. The headline was devastating. Bakery owner arrested for trespassing in his own store. The following morning, Marcus stood at a podium outside the federal courthouse, flanked by his attorney and several civil rights leaders. He looked rested, focused, and dangerous. "Yesterday, I was arrested because an officer of the law could not conceive of a world where a man looking like me could own a business like that," Marcus told the bank of microphones. He didn't see a citizen, he saw a suspect, and because of his bias, he violated the sanctity of my property and my person. The lawsuit filed that afternoon was a masterclass in civil rights litigation. It didn't just target Bennett. It targeted the training protocols of the entire department. It cited the failure to investigate and unlawful seizure. The Department of Justice took notice. Within a week, federal investigators were reviewing the precinct's stop and frisk data. They found what Marcus suspected they would find. Officer Bennett wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom of a culture that rewarded aggressive stats-based policing over community engagement. The internal affairs investigation into Bennett was swift and brutal. The security camera footage from the bakery, which included audio, proved that Bennett had lied in his initial verbal report to the sergeant. He had claimed Marcus was shouting and belligerent. The video showed Marcus speaking in a normal conversational tone. Bennett had claimed he feared for his safety. The video showed Marcus sitting down with his hands on the table, but the nail in the coffin was the business license. Investigators found that Bennett had indeed been offered proof of ownership and had refused to look at it. This constituted willful ignorance of exculpatory evidence. Officer Kyle Bennett was placed on unpaid administrative leave. His union representative, usually a bulldog in these situations, told him frankly, "You arrested a guy who has dinner with the chief of police. You ignored his ID. You lied to the sergeant. There is nothing I can do for you." 6 weeks later, Officer Bennett was terminated for cause. He lost his pension, his badge, and his career. He was 24 years old, and he would never work in law enforcement again. The last report on him stated he had moved back to his rural hometown, working construction, forever known as the cop who arrested the owner of the bakery. The city, desperate to stop the bleeding of bad publicity and facing a trial they knew they would lose, settled with Marcus Thorne for $1.2 million. But Marcus didn't buy a new car. He didn't go on vacation. He took that check, stood in front of the Savory Grains bakery, and handed it directly to a newly formed non-profit organization, the Thorne Legal Defense Fund. "This money," Marcus said in his final interview on the matter, "is for the people who get stopped but don't own the franchise. It's for the kids who get cuffed for walking home. It's for the people who don't have the resources to make the system listen. I didn't win this because I was innocent. I won because I was powerful, and that is a problem we have to fix. The bakery is still there. It's busier than ever." People come from all over the city to buy coffee and support the business. And in the 12th precinct, there is a new photo on the wall of the briefing room. It's a screenshot from the security video showing Bennett standing over Marcus. Underneath it, someone has taped a simple caption, "Assumption is the mother of all screw-ups. Check the ID." It's a quiet reminder to every rookie who walks through those doors. Marcus still sits at that back table on Tuesday mornings. He drinks his coffee. He checks his spreadsheets. But now when officers walk by on patrol, they don't look at him with suspicion. They wave. They know who he is. But more importantly, they know that the man in the suit isn't just a suspect. He is a citizen with rights, and violating those rights carries a price they can't afford to pay. And this story isn't just about a bad cop or a lawsuit. It's about the fragility of dignity. It took Marcus Thorne 30 years to build his reputation, and it took Officer Bennett less than 30 seconds to try and strip it away. It reminds us that authority without wisdom is just bullying. Marcus Thorne had the strength and the means to fight back, but his story forces us to ask, what happens to the ones who don't? Accountability shouldn't hinge on your bank account or who you happen to know at City Hall. It should be the standard. What would you have done if you were in Marcus's shoes? Would you have let them unarrest you to avoid the hassle? Or would you have demanded they book you to prove a point? Let me know in the comments below. And if you believe in justice and accountability, please like this video and share it. It helps us tell more stories that matter.
Thank you for watching today's analysis. If you found this information valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Stay vigilant, stay secure, and join us for our next detailed report.